I'm the creeper, catch me if you can. Out of curiosity, is this phrase familiar to anyone? No hands. Okay, cool, good. All right, so I wouldn't have expected many of you to recognize this. It's actually from the 1970s. But the second half is actually a pretty good Leonardo DiCaprio movie that's also based on true events. So what I wanted to share with you today is that these 8 words were meant to be just a harmless phrase. But they instead triggered what we know today as the butterfly effect that marked the beginning of our understanding of cyber vulnerabilities and cybersecurity. It was actually a test script from a computer program that was released by Bob Thomas in 1971. Bob wanted to see if he could actually have a message spread and replicate from one computer to another on an experimental network called the ARPANET, which is the beginning of the internet. Well, it's hard to remember a time when our computers, our networks, and our phones weren't connected globally 24/7. That was the case. Also, how many of you ever had to experience a dial-up network connection? Very nice, okay. So I would also digress and ask whoever experienced a party line, but I think that might take us a while. There you go, that's what I'm talking about. So I was not born in 1971. However, the acts of Bob have had an enormous impact on myself and the population globally. So when we talk about that butterfly effect, we really have to look at what's the good and the bad of that. So you don't have to raise your hands on this, but I want you to stop and reflect. How many of you actually took a course in school to talk about how to be safe online? How many of you are actually every month or quarter perhaps paying for a credit report to make sure that your credit is still in good standing because of a cyber attack that recently happened on your accounts? Yeah, I see your hands. And then my other question for you would be, how many of you have gotten those great apps that are supposed to make your life easier only to find out that either your personal data or your money have been taken and now you have to go deal with the hassles of that? Those are the things every day that we talk about that happened relative to that single action that Bob took. His choices and actions impact us on a daily basis. Whoops, that's not yet. Bob didn't expect his theory to be correct, and he also didn't anticipate all of the ripple effects throughout history that were going to be caused by his actions. The development from this point of curiosity actually has changed the trajectory related to our technology, the way we design technology, and what we now have to guard against. Good morning. My name's Brandi Burnett. I am the Director of Sustainability from Northrop Grumman Space Systems sector. And I am here because I am leading efforts every day to mitigate the impacts of our business on both the sustainability terrestrially and in orbit. So you might be asking yourself, why is the creeper effect important? And you might also be asking, why is the Director of Sustainability talking to me about cybersecurity? So my educational background is actually in information systems, and I've had the opportunity over a fantastic 16-year career thus far with Northrop Grumman to work in most every segment that we have. And for years, I was an executive leader inside of cybersecurity, both globally and internationally. And when I stopped to think about sustainability and how do I share my message with different audiences, to me, cybersecurity and sustainability really have so many different intersections, and that's what I want to share with you today. So the comparisons are something that I really do see as a butterfly effect that I talked about in the beginning. It's the metaphor of how one single action can then create what we thought was an insignificant event and turn it into a very significant event, and things that over time will lead to revolutionary discoveries. So let's take the creeper. So the creeper was the beginning of cybersecurity. So what do we have to do about that? Well, we have to create a response, and that response was the Reaper. So the Reaper was, in effect, the antivirus for the creeper, and now we've continued to try and evolve that through time, even though that was a single event. To combat this, we also started taking different actions, trying to find ways to understand what was the original entry of creeper, how was it created? So with cybersecurity, there's a hole, right? There's a vulnerability that someone comes in and they exploit. And then that exploit continues to grow for that hole. And then we have to figure out, where did it start? What was it in the beginning that could have led us the opportunity to have blocked that or create different circumstances that would not have created that ineptitude, I would just call it. So you take that and trying to combat that, and then we have the exponential technology developments that we've had over time, the plethora of now connected devices across the network and the globe, and the continuum of new problems is exponential. If you take the introduction of Bob's test code has led to very significant changes. And there are a lot of different parallels that come to light with regards to what that looks like for us related to sustainability and cybersecurity, how they manifest, the overarching impact that they've had, the diversity of the way that we see them, and then the long-lasting effects and where it is that we can go with those. So when I begin to work on a problem or work with teams working on a problem, I usually ask myself one single question. And it's from Franklin Covey's original works, which again, a little throwback from those of you who may or may not know who Franklin Covey is. I recommend it. It's still the 7 Highly Habits of Effective People. But one of them is to begin with the end in mind. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you're going to try and figure out where it is you want to go and where you want to be in the end, that's how you can begin to design to make sure that your design and your development is going to hit the mark that you want to. The other thing that we have to look at besides that is what's the problem that you're trying to solve? If we don't understand the problem we're trying to solve, it becomes very difficult to build in those capabilities that are necessary to sustain our end result in the end. So software hardening, penetration testing, cyber war games, and patching, they're all now part of the standard way that we develop software and we develop our systems. Those things also are considered SecDevOps or security development operations, and again, they are the standard. So if these activities are now built into the system, why didn't we think about them in the 1960s? Why didn't we think about them before Bob? Well, it's because we couldn't even conceive of those problems. They were things that had never been brought to us before. They were systems that we had not designed previously. And as we all know, the parts of tomorrow are already here. They're just not combined in the right order. So what we have to start to do is identify what are the different things that we're doing right now to defend against that same circumstance and sustainment. Because what Bob's single effect did was actually created the 5th theater that we now fight in today, which is considered cyberspace. So a whole new theater of battle came from one person, right? It wasn't just that single action that he took, but it was the continued actions above that that were built upon that got us to where we are today with cybersecurity. So my question to you is, what are the things we should be considering today about our future and the developments that we're currently working on? So let's take AI and machine learning as an example. So AI and machine learning, they're supposed to be helping us increase our data accuracy, leading to new discoveries in healthcare, increasing our autonomy, and then they're supposed to be making our life better, right? Concur? I mean, I think that's why we all wanted AI and machine learning. Okay, but have we considered the great impact that they've had on cybersecurity and the things that they're allowing cybersecurity to now proliferate based upon that? Was there a way for us to understand what it was that DALL-E was going to do as an app that will now pretty much take out a majority or make moot point, certainly, for some artists and creators? Did we consider what was happening when we looked at the chat GPT and the way that it's going to write or rewrite history from an AI and machine learning perspective? Or did we even consider what it is that those deep fakes are doing to our political system? So while AI and machine learning were supposed to be wonderful things to help us in our future, did we contemplate in the end? Did we evolve our questions? And then did we begin to understand what's going to happen in the future with the discoveries and things that we're doing today? So we've been hearing for a really long time, at least I have, maybe some of you not as long, of course, that we need to take action to sustain the world that we live in. We need to reduce our greenhouse gas. We need to reuse water efficiently. We need to make sure that the cycle that we're creating for energy is not unsustainable. And all of these things are more critical in sustaining our world in which we live. But are we doing it fast enough, and are we learning from the lessons in history? Is each one of us doing our part daily to make sure that we are sustaining life here for as long as we can before we have to move on to that next venture or that next planet? And the real question is, from a terrestrial and sustainability, are we now in this room creating a creeper effect? Everything we do on Earth today will affect the future and all of the generations that come after us. Whether it's conserving energy, whether it's forest conservation, whether it is planting another tree in your neighborhood, whether or not you're biking versus riding in your car. Those are all individual daily decisions we make. Plastic versus paper. Let's see, what else do we have? We have things like the cup that I had to take earlier because I left my recyclable cup in my car whenever I parked a few minutes ago. Those are all things that we do on a daily basis, and that's in our personal lives. But my question for you today is, what are you doing in your work and professional life that you're doing to maintain the sustainability? If you look at it, are your designs actually going to be sustainable in the future? Are they sustainable here on Earth, but also are they sustainable in space? So there are two different questions, and we'll get to that in a minute. A big part of what we're doing in space industry today is looking to explore and preparing for our future home, not only in this world, when it's no longer available for future generations here on Earth. And while we explore a future economy in space and we look for life on other planets, we need to make sure that we are ready to keep our home habitable and sustainable for as long as possible. Everything we're doing to prepare for space should be addressed with sustainability in mind for the end goal. So I'm lucky to be able to live out both my personal and professional passions on a daily basis and try and help keep this beautiful planet Earth the way it is today. So I'm a diver, I'm a sailor, I'm a captain, and at some point I plan to circumnavigate with my husband in the not so distant future. We'll see how long it might take. But that being said, sustainability is a huge part of my life, and it's going to be vital to the life that I live in the future, and it is vital to today. And when we look at life 20 to 30 years from now, it's going to look very different. So you'll hear a lot this week about how it is that we're working today to decide what the future in space looks like. And what does that design look like? And why are your daily decisions here now so significantly important to what it is that it's going to look like in the future? And as we pioneer and we do the right things to explore, both in future space and in building our systems, inherently sustainability has to be in the forefront of those decisions. So in my role as Sustainability Director for space, I think about it in two different ways. So I think about sustainability before space, and I think about sustainability in space. So the before space piece is really what are we doing today as we design? Are we capable of managing to? And then the in space is once it gets into space, how are we going to sustain it? And what impact will it have on the actual space atmosphere itself and that theater that we talked about earlier? As another theater, of course, I know cyberspace and space are two different theaters. That's not my point. So what I wanted to note is that cyber is no longer an afterthought. So if you go back and look at the parallels, right, between sustainability and between cybersecurity, we've gotten to where cybersecurity is no longer an afterthought. It's designed into everything we do. We have schools that are designed around. Who attended a school that has cybersecurity as a degree or even has a degree in cybersecurity? Right. So, I mean, it's a multitude of things now. We have full departments and organizations that are designed around cybersecurity and how we're going to defend around those future and current emulations of what cyber looks like. And then we also have cyber resiliency is a standard for all technology development. So we've gotten to the point to where cybersecurity is no longer an afterthought, but it's what we think about in the beginning. How do we change our conversation now to actually include it in the beginning of our space sustainability? So how can we build space systems today that are sustained for now and in the future? And then how can we build space systems here on Earth that can be one day sustained in space? And I know we're not there yet. We're getting there, trust me. We've made some great progress at Northrop Grumman for sure. And we are working to figure out how do we manufacture, how do we repair, and how do we refuel in space. But until we get there, we have to think about the first part, that sustainably thinking about space before it goes into orbit. And as stewards leading the future of the space industry, we must think about the Earth and space sustainability as we're building our systems. We need to make sure that we're utilizing resources effectively and sustainably. Things like clean energy, choosing materials to reduce greenhouse gas and our water use, or changing our operations to make sure that we're encouraging those goals. We have to embed sustainability in everything we do, in the mission, in the design, And we also need to start sharing those best practices with one another. That's not always something we're great about as both organizations, as silos, as corporations. But that's something that we have to change because we all came together. There were cybersecurity consortiums, and we have to do the same thing with sustainability. So that being said, how do we make sustainability thinking across the board? How do we make sure that it's a part of every conversation, and how do we include those two questions in the same breath? So that's exactly why I'm here speaking to this group today. This is the next group of space professionals, of engineers, of designers, and business leaders. And we need your help to start answering some of the questions that we have today and begin considering the questions that we haven't even conceived of. How is it the things and the decisions that we're making today are going to wind up creating and emulating and turning themselves into a problem that we're not even aware of? So as you step out into this and as you look at sustainability across everything you do, here are some of the questions that I have for you to start asking yourself. When you're at work choosing materials for your next generation system, are they sustainable materials? When you're considering a supplier for a part, have you asked them what it is for their sustainability perspective and what they're doing differently with their operations? Are the resources you're recommending, are they finite or are they actually renewable? Is your procurement decision based upon the budget you have today, or is it on the total life cycle cost of the environmental footprint of the system that you're going to be selecting? Are you investing money into efficiently reusing, or are you choosing to upgrade because you recognize that you have to overcome legacy organizational and operational costs related to sustainability? And are you choosing to counter or to support our Earth's sustainability in your business decisions? Your contributions in this area do not have to be grandiose. Every action is, whether grand or small, is going to make a difference. Me standing in front of you is one of the ways that I'm trying to make a difference. I'm hoping for that butterfly effect, that by me talking to you today about your actions, about your decisions, about the things that you do on a daily basis and can influence, that you're setting that same expectation for others and setting that good example. Because your individual decisions will make a difference for today and for the generation of the future, as well as for how long our Earth remains sustainable. With that, I'm going to leave you with two things. Again, begin with the end in mind. Think, question yourself. Identify, is what I'm doing actually not only good for today, but how is it going to impact me tomorrow? How is it going to impact the persons who come after me? Could something be used in the future that I have yet to imagine? And consider and ask yourself those questions. Are you learning from the lessons we've already had in history, and can you create better ones? And then number two, recognize your footprint along the way. Your decisions might seem simple, but they could have a very strong effect in regards to where we're going to go long term and what the impacts will be. Everyone has a role to play in terrestrial and space sustainability. Every one of you in here, it doesn't matter. Every day you make a decision, believe it or not, if you did the footprints and traced it back, that are going to have a long-term effect, and we have to be understanding what that is. And then ask yourselves with that decision, am I on the verge of a creeper? So I want to thank you all this morning for giving me the opportunity to come and speak with you. It's been a lot of fun, and it made me really reflect on a lot of the things that are important to me in both parts of my life. So thank you for that. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's featured students and young professional lightning talks. Northrop Grumman's proud to sponsor the Day 2 event, as we talked about. Previously it was just one day, but now it's been 2 days. So kudos to the team and everybody who's helped that grow, and your attendance has been a huge part of that as well, so thank you. There were a lot of submissions, and we were very grateful to see all the interest and so many great ideas. So I'm excited for you to hear today from Steph Del Pozo, the associate at NextFed, Hailu Daniel, an aerospace engineer student from the University of Maryland in College Park, Sapna Rao, a systems engineer at Lockheed Martin, Carson Corsi, an associate member of the technical staff at Aerospace Corporation, Rachit Puri, an aerospace engineer at the Office of Commercial Space Transportation for the Federal Aviation Administration. And I also have two more, being Alex Merker, a senior consultant at Guidehouse, and last but not least, Emma Loudon, as an astrophysicist PhD student at Yale University. So let's hear a round of applause from them. And if you've got any questions for me, please feel free to connect and speak with me afterwards. Thank you so much.